So good afternoon, students. Should we start the class now? See, today we will discuss Unit 14. We haven't discussed that properly, so we will discuss that. Now, what is this concept of globalization? Let me tell you what is the course of history from, you can say, from the Second World War till date. Now, remember, globalization is not a new phenomenon. The globalization means flow of public goods, flow of goods and services internationally, or globalizing globalization of markets in all nations, flow of labor and capital across among nations or across national boundaries. Now, this is not a new thing. If you, in a simpler term, if you understand doing business in another country is globalization, if each and every nation is interested to have trade and commerce in another country, it is globalization. If literally we think that. Long back in ancient days, we have read in our history that people from India, also particularly Odisha, went to Southeast Asian nations to do trade and commerce. We also know that English, French, Dutch, all these people came to India to do their business. So, is it not globalization? I in in medieval era also, when the Mughals were ruling our country, people from across the border, that means since the Mughals were not originally from India, so when they came, their people also came to do trade and commerce. When Alexander invaded India and some people stayed back, also their people could know about this country and came here, did trade and commerce. So naturally, those who are interested in investing their capital, they utilize every opportunity, and that we may term as globalization. But that globalization influence the population in a very little way, influence the population in a very little way, in the sense that we have a liking for ghazals. You can call it as cultural assimilation. Sociologists name this process as cultural assimilation. When two cultures come together, they adopt each other's new things. So it is but natural, because human beings are very wise, and any type of new things, they are very enthusiastic about adopting those new things and reinventing their system. So this is but natural. The printing press was not invented in our country, but we started learning that, and we also introduced printing press in our country when it started in European nations. So naturally, these you will find that Who is Shakti Prasad Das? Okay. So naturally, we will find that uh, it's not globalization. Literally, if it means flow of goods and labor across the border, exchange of goods and labor among nations, then it is not a new thing. But impact of globalization on people at different points of history is different. Uh, Theorists, those who talk about globalization, they say that globalization in ancient, medieval, or even the modern era was not was in ancient and medieval was not impacting the society in terms of changing the structure or in terms of changing the attitude. The globalization that we are talking about is a phenomenon of 1990s. How this phenomenon came into being, how we become very interested about this phenomenon. In 1973, you know, right after Second World War, the war came to an end, but the two countries, two big powers, believing in two different political ideologies and having two different state structures, two different type of society. The society may be same, but the state structure created different type of aspirations in people. One is that the first is the Western liberal society where they wanted to create such an environment where everybody will have access to all opportunities to develop his own self, like United States of America. People were given the opportunity, enough freedom to develop themselves. Its alternative, that is the erstwhile Soviet Union, the communistic state, which was created in 1917 by the October Revolution, and it continued till 1989. That means for 72 years, that state continued, and later on, it it dissolved. The erstwhile Soviet Union is now 15 nation states, and among them, Russia is more powerful, which can counter the United States power uh, in a true sense of the term. So, what you find is that after the Second World war came to an end. The Allies won the war. But who were the Allies? The Allies did not have belief in one political ideology. United States and Soviet Union, both of them, they were critical of each other, and they were in one group against Germany and Italy in the Second World War. So naturally, after the war, the enmity between these two states continued. So that is that, and people also developed that philosophy. We have a liberal perspective of state, we have a Marxist perspective of state. You can say the liberal perspective of state was uh, exhibited by the United States of America and European nations, and the Marxist perspective of state was exhibited by Lenin and Stalin in Soviet Union, and Mao Zedong and his successors in China. It had its own it had its existence in Cuba also, in North Korea. You find something around 7 to 8 nations were believing in the Marxist perspective of state, and they also reformed their administration accordingly. So, what is the difference between these two perspectives? We have already discussed about it. You know, liberal theory of state also has a bureaucracy. The communistic state, which believed in Marxism, also has a bureaucracy. But in a communistic state, the bureaucracy is very powerful because the state controls every aspect of human life. State is state is responsible for providing all basic needs. Weekly ration is given to citizens. Citizens are compelled to have education. All state looks after their health needs, also their educational needs, their food security needs, and till they grow up as adults. After they grow up as adults, since the state has taken their care in every sense of the term, they are therefore they have to obey, they have to contribute towards the state the way the state wants. As you know, we have doctors who are not interested in serving in state medical uh, outfits. That will never happen in a communistic state because the state has made you a doctor. So you have no freedom to choose as you like. You have to give service to the state the way you like, the way the state wants. In our state, you see, I cannot talk about the other states what they are doing, but in Odisha, what is mandatory? After MBBS, if you want to do master degree in medicine or medical science, you have to before that work in the periphery hospitals of India. In Odisha, sorry, in Odisha. That is the minimum criteria to get into master degree in any state sponsored or government medical college. Now, this is compulsory. So it's a similar way the communistic state also runs. State has made you a doctor. State has made you a engineer. State has made you a scientist. State has invested on you, and you have no other freedom. Rather, you have to contribute to the state the way the state wants. So, exactly in true sense of the term, the post Second World War state was a administrative welfare state. So naturally, since state uh, touches every aspect of human beings, so the state touches every aspect of human beings. So naturally, bureaucracy is in charge of all these things. Of the bureaucracy uh, is more powerful wherever there is a administrative welfare state. Now, uh, after the Cold War, the, there was no real war, but enmity between these two countries continued. If there is and also the states after the Second World War, these developing countries, they adopted a policy of protectionism. They adopted a policy of protectionism. That means their economy was very, very regulatory. They did not allow the government, the foreign products in their market. There was a regulatory state, and the state uh, did not allow people to do business in a very, very liberal way. So this was the state, because the state wanted to control every aspect of the society, so that there is no such exploitation as it happened in the colonial era. So, but in early 1970s, a new thing happened in the international arena. Now, how you just see, we are saying that globalization is a new phenomenon, but actually it is not. In 1973, the oil producing countries, they came together and formed an organization, that is OPEC, oil and petroleum exporting countries. And this organization uh, decided the price per barrel of oil, and also decided how much the countries should extract oil from their oil wells. These two decisions of theirs, it created balance of payment situation, adverse balance of payment situation in all developing countries, because the developing countries were exporting oil and gas from these oil and petroleum exporting countries. So when they enhance the price of barrel of oil, there is no competition. They came together, they formed a cartel. So naturally, uh, the economies of other countries got affected. How it got affected? The import bill became more than the export. When your import is more than your export, you find difficulty in paying the import, because you have to pay for the import in terms of international currency. International currency is American dollar now. So, in terms of international currency, if you have less export and more import, then you do not have that requisite international currency to pay for your import bills. When the price of oil was enhanced by the OPEC countries, everybody's import bill became more than their export amount. So, even after the Second World War, the world had created two financial institutions: International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Now, developing nations who are having uh, adverse balance of payment situation, that means they lack international currency, they can borrow from IMF, that international currency, to pay for the import bill. Also, when they want some infrastructural development, they do not have money, they borrow money from World Bank to do that infrastructural development. Dams, steel plants, all these things are from infrastructure. We get that money we borrow from infrastructural development. Probably this is the first time we are, for last 5-10 years, we are getting massive amount of money from World Bank. Just a minute. So they for the last 10 years, one decade or so, massive amount of money is being borrowed from World Bank for the development of higher education institutions. Right now it is going on. So every educational institution today, the colleges and the universities are having enough money to develop their because too much money from the World Bank is borrowed. Okay, so what you find is that mm, when the input bill, the developing nations could not pay the input bill and they borrowed from IMF. IMF, just a minute.
Ma'am, your audio is mute.
In the early 1980s, these international institutions, they came out with a program. You can get about this program. Oh, sorry. So in 1981, the international financial institutions uh, came out with a program. You can uh, know about this program from internet, structural adjustment program. You just write about it, structural adjustment program. So this SAP program was meant to rejuvenate the economies of the developing nations. Now this is actually the first stage of globalization. You can say that the international institutions, they compel the developing nations to accept the uniform code of conduct. On what basis? They said, if you do not have your repaying capacity, how can we give you a loan? We cannot. You must ensure that if you take the money, you are able to give it back to us. So this is what was the basic feature of this structural adjustment program. Let me tell you. You can then, after listening to it, you can call it as a Western agenda. You can call it as a capitalist agenda, whatever it is. The features of the structural adjustment programs were like this: downsizing government expenditure, cutting down subsidies, more expenditure in the social sector like health and education, you know, uh, liberalizing your economy, allowing uh, uh, private enterprise, entrepreneurship, or you can call it as development of entrepreneurship, allowing foreign direct investment, uh, the, and the last one is participatory governance. Allow the people to participate in the public sphere in a in a real sense, in a substantive sense. So you can call it as a Western agenda. You can also call it as a modern thinking, post-modern thinking, where in a true sense of the term, though we had democracy, we never had participatory governance. We always consider the people as passive recipients of welfare measures. So that was the situation: passive recipients of welfare measures. Now, many countries, third world countries like Sri Lanka, those Bangladesh, those who were uh, in a bankrupt position, they accepted this immediately. But India resisted it. India initially rejected it, followed the philosophy of structural adjustment program, but rejected, did not give the consent to uh, accept the structural adjustment program. India on its own brought many reforms in the 1980s. Before we adopted the new economic policy, we started bringing many administrative reforms like examination of public sector sick units, introduction of golden handshake scheme, something like we had introduced this competition among the public sector units. So all these things we had introduced. We had not liberalized the economy, but we had introduced it. Society in 1990 is early 1991, you can say, the new economic policy was adopted by India. So also by many nations. India is the, you can say, is the last in the line, adopted the structural adjustment program and brought a new economic policy. So in that sense, you can call globalization as is very very economic in nature. When we adopted this no, gradually with the uh, bringing of this structural adjustment program, what happened is that more and more international migration in different countries occurred. Free flow of labor, free flow of foreign products. No, you do not know what. I think I have one experience of this globalization. In my childhood, you any one of you might be having, in my childhood, we had seen this Campa and its Fanta and all, but suddenly disappeared from the market. As a child, I was thinking how such a tasty drink, how the company experienced loss, that the company was closed and the product is no longer in the market. At that point of time, I had not understood. No, I something around in 1970s, and I had not understood what globalization was. Again, I could notice this product in 1990s, when I was already an adult and engaged in a job. So you can just imagine, I think except Bata, no other company was there in our country, because we did not allow those international companies to operate in our country which did not share their technological know how with us. Probably Coca Cola did not share the technological know how with us. Therefore, the government decided to drive out that company from the Indian market. This is the change that we see in globalization. So, this globalization brought a sea change in the society. Now, how this you can see this globalization brought a sea change in the society. What type of change? Now, when you have different companies, and you can go to there was much craze for going foreign in our country itself. So if your children are visualizing that future, then you started teaching your children in public schools, giving education to your children in public schools instead of the government schools. The government schools that you find right now was not such when we were the students in government schools. We are the products of those government schools. We hardly, there was one or two public school, and we never thought of, our parents never thought of sending us to those schools. So what you find is that suddenly you find a group of intellectuals who can speak fluently in English and ready for the Western market, and also interested to go abroad and work in the Western countries. So this is a societal change because of development of technology, and the remittances you get, those households where there was international migration. I'm not talking about internal migration, international migration. Those households became well off relatively, and they can have a better lifestyle, had those modern amenities and all these things. There was expansion of the social base, democratic base. People also became conscious of their democratic rights, and this is how you will find.
Ma'am, kindly unmute yourself.
Oh, oh, sorry, sorry, sorry. There is much disturbance. Okay. So towards the later part, last end of 1980s, we find that in the second Minobrook perspective, the new public management concept was discussed. But however, the new public management, this NPM acronym, was given by Christopher Hood in 1991, and the main objective of this NPM was to reinvent government. That means to bring administrative reforms so that government can work properly. Towards the end of 1980s, a document was published by World Bank, you know, on sub-Saharan Africa. That was where the World Bank used the word misgovernance or malgovernance, because they had taken a huge amount of money, and the sub-Saharan African countries could not pay back their loan. So the World Bank came out with त्रिलोक चाबी देगी पड़ाओ. The World Bank came out with um, okay, the World Bank came out with a document that there is malgovernance in sub-Saharan African countries. In 1992, the World Bank published another document, that is good governance. You can also see this document in internet. So that is there they defined what is good governance, what are the features of good governance, and you know the international community considered these features of good governance as the uniform code of conduct for all countries, and developing countries accepted that. And we will discuss about this good governance. I'll just tell you about its features. This is just like having a transparent government. Yesterday I was talking about smart governance, having an accountable government, having downsizing your state expenditure, enhancing the capabilities of the people, participatory governance. So, in the true sense of the term, ensuring democratic rights of the people. So, with the development of science and technology, with the development of internationalization of societies, there was much exchange of cultures, and mm, there was renovation of the society, and the societal attitude also changed a lot. Societal attitude also changed a lot. All of us can know about these changes properly. So, if you consider economically, globalization is internationalization. Globalization adds open border for free flow of goods and labor power. Globalization is a process. If you close your market for others, you will also be not benefited by it, because your economy will suffer. Today, only because you are preparing yourself for international market. In Odisha, we can just notice it. Since we are preparing ourselves for international market, today there is so much expansion of the uh, the handicrafts, the work of the artisans, the filigree work, all these things. Because we have opened our border to other countries, we are also enjoying there the require. We are also updating our products, renovating our products for their market, and in that way our workers are getting benefited by that. Globalization as an ideology, we believe that it should be accepted. So uh, globalization as a transnational phenomenon. Now, if you consider the political aspect of globalization, you will find that uh, it is something very different. What is it? It has Globalization has talked about the neoliberal political philosophy, which calls back for rolling back of the state. That means less power to the state and more power to other non-state actors. Who are the non-state actors? The non-state actors are civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and international organizations. See, today, if we just observe Odisha, you will find that Odisha works in close collaboration with UNICEF, with UNDP, with UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, for drafting its policies, for the development of its people. In many cases, in collaboration with these international agencies, Odisha introduces new things, different type of livelihood generations for the people at the lowest level of the society. So this is one type of networking you will find. So though there was initially everybody thought that we are talking about rolling back of the state. If you are talking about rolling back of the state, that means who will rule? Rolling back of the state, debureaucratization, more power to the private sector, more power to the non state actors. So there was actually, it's just a revival of the early liberalism, where we said that state is an evil institution, and state can take a intervene in the liberty of the people. So therefore, uh, state should there should be minimal state activity only to maintain law and order. But here in today's world, the state has other type of functions, like the state should network with the partners. Who are the partners? The partners are the other actors, the private sector, the non-governmental sector, the civil society organizations, and international organizations. So this is you can call it the state as a corporate welfare state, reconfiguration of the political power. So this corporate welfare state replaces the administrative welfare state. When this corporate welfare state replaces the administrative welfare state. So, what are the changes that are coming? You know, debureaucratization. That means we have a permanent bureaucracy. There is no dismantling of the state structure. We have a permanent bureaucracy, but at certain cases, we have temporary work system. That means if the government wants to, government creates different administrative institutions, like you see, apical, agricultural promotion organization, just like that. I'm giving one example where you can have the chief executive, a permanent official, a bureaucrat, but below the bureaucrat you hire an expert who can handle the things in a much better way. This is called temporary work system. You hire somebody for the work because that person who is having expertise in management or foreign trade, if posted there, will be able to promote the business in a much wider and better way than the permanent bureaucrat or the permanent governance system. So this temporary work system where the person, the expert, is appointed for 3 to 5 years, like we had this skill development authority. We invited Mr. Subrat Bagchi to head the organization. This type of examples you can see. So where we have temporary work system to enhance the efficiency of the administrative state. So what are we doing? We are partnering with the private sector and other non-state actors for better delivery of welfare services. So therefore, this state has been coined as administrative welfare state. So as a way, the globalization has brought a paradigm shift in the nature and the scope of public administration. Today, administration is more flexible, less hierarchical. See, if you are just compare two scenarios. If you are hiring an expert, take for example Mr. Subrat Bagchi, we invited him to head the skill development authority of Odisha. Now, do you think uh, he may be working under a permanent bureaucrat, but do you think the permanent bureaucrat will treat him as the subordinate? No, the relationship is different. This is so you find a more accommodative bureaucracy. This is the impact of globalization on administration. Less hierarchical, an accommodative kind, and it is informed by the philosophy of networks and collaboration. So, public administration has reincarnated itself. Globalization has created the urgency of a more proactive public administration. Because the main philosophy of new public management is to anticipate the problem, not to resolve the problem later on, to anticipate the problem and bring reforms accordingly. This is what uh, globalization has taught us. In terms of structure, it has become less hierarchical, and at the functional level, We have many such innumerable administrative organizations where we are. What is this? What is this screen recording? There is recording, the lecture is recorded by your regional office. So what is this screen recording? So what you find is that at the societal level, uh, the state is networking with other organizations. Since state is networking with other organizations, so naturally there is a broad-based participation of people in governance. Now I'll tell you one thing. Uh, State is assigning the private sector for delivery of welfare services, like our electricity has been managed by tatas. The airport authority has been managed by the tatas. So that, you know what you find, the passport office is managed by the tatas. That means what you find, if the state has trust with this private organization, the state is assigning its work to to that organization. So naturally, if the state is ready to ready in partnering with other organizations also try to be in the good book of the state. So what you find, the state as an enabler or facilitator of delivery of services rather than a direct provider of services. So this is the way it is done in Western countries in 100% way. But this is not done in developing countries, because in developing countries, the state still has some power, some responsibility of providing uh, public services or public goods. So the traditional structure was a bureaucratic structure, means rigid hierarchical structure. There was professional domination, accountability to the public, equity of treatment, and self-sufficiency. Today, it has changed drastically. uh, there is reconfiguration of political power and repositioning of the state vis-a-vis the non-state actors, because uh, we have committed ourselves to, the state has committed itself to participatory governance. Impact of, when globalization was introduced in towards the end of 20th century, some people said that globalization is good. Some people said that globalization will enhance pauperization of our people. See, I just recollect, I remember at one point of time, people protested against the opening of Reliance Fresh shops. You must be remembering, those who have observed it. People protested against the opening of Reliance Fresh shops. But what was the consequence later on? Initially, when the Reliance Fresh shops, I distinctly remember, initially when the Reliance Fresh shops were opened, apple was sold at the rate of 90 rupees per kg, whereas outside the street vendors, they used to sell apple at the rate of 40 rupees per kg. But suddenly, when the people fail to convince the government that Reliance Press is not beneficial for us, but or allowing the multinationals into the retail trade is not good for us, but the government was determined to allow the private sector into retail trade. And suddenly I found, after some just few months, or you can say within a month or two, the price of products enhanced exponentially. The apple that was sold inside the Reliance Fresh market, because since I am a social scientist, I was reading about globalization, privatization. I was closely watching all these things. The apple that was sold at 90 rupees per kg inside the Reliance Fresh was also sold similar looking apples outside the market. So there was a parity in the price of the street vendor and the Reliance Fresh shops. Now, who is the loser here? The poorest of the poor is the loser here. The poor was at least, trying to have apple when it was 40 rupees per kg. But the poor could not afford to have apple at 90 rupees per kg. So just imagine how much inflation it caused. At one point of time, maybe in 2000, in the beginning of 2000, the minimum wage for workers was 90 rupees. But just see, today, recently the circular of government of Odisha has come. The minimum wage for the worker is 450 rupees. But what the worker was getting in 90 rupees cannot get that much in 450 rupees today. So the net result is that the millions of working people migrate to other countries, within the state, other states, under distressed conditions. So those who observed this, they were very, very critical of globalization. They said that globalization is just the other name for imperialism that we experienced during the British rule. This imperialism is causing inflation. This imperialism is pauperizing the people. So, one group is saying that globalization is very bad. So, even today, the two schools of thought continues. Continuously, they do research, and the two type of perspectives. Globalization is good, globalization is not good, making the poor more poorer. And also, what you find is that impact of globalization, emergence of supra territorial governance organization, as I told you, IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organization, all these things. So these
Ma'am,
institutions have imposed a uniform code of conduct on us. Yes.
ma'am, what is imperialism?
Oh, acha. Imperialism is a politico-economic phenomenon where uh, a nation which believes in imperialism ର ଓଡ଼ିଆ ହେଉଛି ସାମ୍ରାଜ୍ୟବାଦ. A nation which believes in imperialism, first step is goes to another foreign country, does trade and commerce there, and slowly and steadily
Yeah.
captures the political system of that country and makes rules and regulations through that political power to suit its needs.
Yeah.
So, in imperialism, what happens is that they export cheap labor, cheap raw material, and make products in their country and uh, get them to the colonized country to sell them. So if those products, those finished products, you know what happened in British India, if
Yeah.
those finished products are to be sold in Indian market, or in, for that matter, any foreign, in the market of any foreign nation, then you have to change the economy and attitude of that natives in that colony. So first thing that they did when they wanted to sell textile products in our country, the first thing that they said is that they dismantled, they structured the economy in such a way that the artisans found no work and no customer for their product, because
Yes.
that the product, the synthetic sari they
Okay.
sold in the market was more durable than the sari that was uh, that was made by the artisans, the weavers. So the
Yeah.
weavers lost their job because there was no customers for their product. So imperialism means expansion of your territory. Like Great Britain was colonizing three-fourths of the world. Even United States of America, which is now United States of America, is a combination of 13 small states which were colonized by United Kingdom. Many countries, many African, Latin American, Asian countries were under the political control of Great Britain. So, therefore, they were saying, rule Britannia, rule the waves, because they were good sailors, so they could sail through the sea, they could navigate through the sea, and they can reach the unexplored areas
Yes.
and can start ruling there. So, this phenomenon is called imperialism, where they first intervene the economy, they intervene politically, then they, in the process, they intervene socially. So, the this imperialism, it is said that weakens the economy of the colony and also destroys the indigenous element in all native states. As I told you yesterday or day before yesterday, what happened with India after independence? India, did not adopt its indigenous model of administration. India adopted the Western model of parliamentary democracy. India adopted the Western model of justice system. India adopted the Western model of political system. So it is not just specific of India. It is common to all developing countries wherever British authorities ruled. So today we have Commonwealth of Nations, where you find all these colonial legacies in those countries. I hope you understand what is imperialism.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So, so today people say that since the supra-territorial organizations are dictating terms to us, are in are enforcing a uniform code of conduct, imposing a uniform code of conduct for us, and these supra-territorial organizations are dominated by Western nations. So critics say that it is a new form of imperialism because you are allowing the international agencies to examine your administration, your development activities. So that is why the government of India, or the for that matter government of Odisha, cares for those international agencies. Because if the international agencies accept your development model, then there will be no criticism at the global level for you. That is the main thing. That is why we are collaborating with all UN agencies today. UNICEF has a great place. Other NGOs, international NGOs like Oxfam, may be driven out of the country, but UN agencies are very much active in our country now, even today also, because they will, if we collaborate with them, uh, they will have a good impression of our developmental activities. So, second impact of public administration is growing interdependence of nation states. For example, environmental degradation. If oil spilling happens uh, in any country and the oil goes to the sea, what will it will also affect the climate of another country. So this is what is, there is growing interdependence of nation states for environment degradation. How it happened? See, COVID, COVID-19 virus came to India. How it came to India? Because we have thoroughfare for the international migrants. First, COVID-19 appeared in the state of Kerala and then in Delhi also. Because, you know, because of the growth of transport and communication, people are, uh, people have a thoroughfare to all nations. Third thing is that free flow of information. And this free flow of information has differential impact on nations. Okay, has differential impact on nations. And third world countries or developing countries has capitalized it more. Fourth thing is that developing countries have tried to capture this information, extract this information. Uh, so the emergence of the corporate welfare state, where we have liberalized the delivery of services with the help of private sector. We have introduced public sector reforms, and there is a global consciousness for global justice, transparency, and accountability. Now, all the time, the international agencies, they start ranking nations, and this happened from 1995, when the Human Development Index was uh, created by the United Nations Development Program. Nations were ranked in terms of their life expectancy, in terms of their attendance in schools, and in maternal mortality, infant mortality, like this. So we have the Human Development Index. Now, when we had the Human Development Index and we found that there is less development women, we realized that this Human Development Index is not enough. to know whether half of the population, that is women, are developing or not. We must have sex segregated data. So then the world introduced Gender Development Index (GDI). When the world started ranking nations in terms of Gender Development Index, naturally, the developing nations do not want that they should be ranked lower. Because if they are ranked lower, all those international financial assistance will not flow to their country. So, accordingly, they introduced administrative reform. They introduced developmental programs so that data can be there, and the international agencies, by looking through that data, can know about the can assess the level of women's development in our country. So accordingly, we also developed, we also started keeping sex segregated data. So this global consciousness for global justice, transparency, and accountability ultimately resulted in the emergence of many progressive laws, legislations in our country. One such is Right to Information Act. Other one is the Forest Right Act. The um, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which which wanted to create a robust local governance system in India. And across the globe, the word government was reinterpreted as governance. If government is the structural aspect, governance is the functional aspect of government. Governance is a process, the art of governing. So they created a distinction between the international community, created a distinction between bad governance and good governance. They coined words like governability and governmentality. I had told you about it. Governability means whether you have the capability to introduce good governance. Second thing is whether you might have the structure, you might have administrative reforms. Do you have the attitude to do you have the attitude to introduce these changes? Having a 5T department or a 5T ministry is just showing to the world that yes, we have the attitude to introduce new administrative reforms. The most important thing because of the globalization is empowerment of citizens. Previously, we were considering the citizens are passive recipients of welfare services. So there was a unilinear relationship between the state and the citizen. Though we introduced democracy, but the relationship was just like a monarchical system. The citizens never questioned the state regarding its deeds, never questioned the bureaucracy regarding its maladministration. But today, you find people question. People get information under RTI. Then they go to the court of law, file public interest litigation. They just now, you just say, for a recent example, new election commissioners were appointed. Since there was much hue and cry because the government the parliament dissociated the Chief Justice from the appointment of new election commissioners. So there was much hue and cry. But however, it was accepted, and right now, on the eve of election, when the new election commissioners are being appointed, people have questioned the authenticity of the ruling party for appointing the election commissioners, because if there is a three-member committee, the two members belong to the ruling party and one member belong to the opposition party. So naturally, if even if the opposition party member objects, the decision will be taken. So people have filed PIL in the court of law. This just this is the today's yesterday's news. People have filed in the PIL in the court of law, Supreme Court, saying that on the eve of election, how can we trust the government? It was not previously when we had a administrative state. Today we are having such people's initiatives in a true sense of the term. The participation of the base of the participation of the people is expanding. So the gap between public sector and private sector has blurred. Public sector is also behaving like the private sector today because of the introduction of new public management. So we can just conclude by saying that globalization has brought structural, procedural, and attitudinal change in the state actors and non-state actors also. Now, this is in nutshell, you can call it as impact of globalization. So when you are writing about the impact of globalization, you can just also point out the negative aspects, like the when you are when there is rolling back of the state, when we are minimizing state expenses, when we are minimizing state expenses, when we are downsizing bureaucracy, so less government jobs are available. Even government is adopting methods like, contractual employees, temporary employees, instead of having permanent employees. So there is a expansion of the unorganized sector even within the organized sector. That means even in a government school, you have temporary teachers. Government is paying for them. Even in a government college, you have temporary teachers. Government is paying for them, but they were known as guest faculties. So there is downsizing of government expenditure. If you have the guest faculty, government does not have to bear the expenses of pension or gratuity or all other benefits that is available to the permanent employee. So what you find is that you find that globalization has resulted in the emergence of a class of transnational capitalists. Because of the collapse of state socialism in Soviet Union and the dismantling of the Soviet Union in 1989, a change in the global scenario, international scenario happened. And what you find today, even in China, even in Russia, you have this private sector. So you find transnational emergence of a new capitalist class who are transnational in nature. Okay. So in a way, as far as our knowledge of public administration goes, we can say that there is a shift from Weberian model of bureaucracy to new Taylorism. I hope you have read scientific management approach. If a question comes like this, there is a shift from Weberian model of bureaucracy to new Taylorism. Can you explain this question? What is new Taylorism? What is Taylorism? Scientific management approach you must have read in administrative theory. Scientific management approach advocated by Frederick Winslow Taylor says that there should be functional specialization in an industrial organization or any organization. Though Taylor says about industrial organization, we can uh, ex- you apply it to all other organizations. Taylor says that there is only one best way of doing a work. So what you do is that you you there is a scientific selection of workmen, and there is science of work. It is the duty of the managers to do two things: scientific selection of workmen and development of the science of work. Then you try to integrate the two things. Scientific selection of workmen, that means you are selecting somebody who is expert in the field, and you have science of work, you are integrating them together. So that is how more production will happen. So for administrative efficiency also it is required. And to accept this, what is important is there is a change in the mental, you should have a mental revolution, you should have an attitudinal change. Now today we have many freelancers in the globalization world. Today we have many freelancers which provide much better quality service for anything. Government wants a project proposal to get money from international agency. Organizations are there which can give you project proposals with all technicalities which will be suitable for international organizations like World Bank, or for that matter World Health Organization, whatever it is. So naturally the permanent bureaucrat might not be having such expertise. So there the governor, there the administration hires a third person who has expertise in this field. So this is how there is much administrative reform. Therefore, it is said that there is a shift from Weberian model of bureaucracy to new Taylorism. If we want, if we want that agricultural product should be such that it should cater to the needs of the international market, then you hire an expert, agricultural scientist for that purpose, and the hiring is just for 3 to 5 years, and you pay high salary to that person, enough autonomy to that person to draft policies accordingly. So what is more important for the administration is outcome, the result. So this is what is new Taylorism is. Taylorism talks about science of work. which will ultimately result in administrative efficiency. So, Weber gave us a traditional bureaucratic paradigm, and if you add Taylorism to that, then only you can have administrative efficiency, time bound work, and all those 5 T's you can get. You also integrate those persons who are experts in the field, so they work together as a teamwork. They are not, your people might be there, but outsiders are also there. So the equation is such that they work together with comfortably. So I have told you, on the impact of globalization on public administration, and I must tell you, it is a very, very important question and must question in the examination. So you must prepare that question, and you can get this in all those textbooks. The textbook written by Bidut Chakrabarti, the textbook written by Mohit Bhattacharya, Rumki Basu. You can get all these things from the you can get all these things from those books. So I just, since it is a very important question, I just wanted to teach you properly this unit. We have taken much time on this, and we have the unit 16. In, Instead of unit 16, I think we must discuss about uh, the concept of good governance. We must discuss about that. It will not take much time. So should we start the concept of good governance, or any questions you have? Any questions you have? No questions? Okay. So we'll start with that. So okay. So let us the about good governance. We will teach you. I'll teach you tomorrow. Tomorrow, not on 19th. We are having the next class. On 19th, we are having the next class. So let us discuss on Unit 16, emerging concepts, new public management. We have discussed a lot on new public management, but still in a very systematic way. I'm telling you now again. In 1992, there was a book which was published by David Osborne and Ted Gebler, Reinventing Government. And in 1993, Vice President of United States of America, Al Gore, submitted a report titled National Performance Review. What was written in National Performance Review? It suggested something called reinventing government in a country like United States of America. It gave a call for basic restructuring of the way we operate and think about government. Okay. So the version that was outlined in National Performance Review is based on the concept established in the book by Osborne and Gebler, Reinventing Government. Remember, Reinventing Government. They named it as REGO. It is based on the belief that government is the solution to every problem that the country faces. Just see the thing. Government, initially they gave a call, the neoliberal ideology gave a call that there should be retreat of the state, there should be withdrawal of the state, there should be rolling back of the state. But however, in the National Performance Review of 1993, the Al Gore, the chairperson, said that government is the solution to every problem that the country faces. So the basic concepts of reinvention was number one, government should steer rather than row. That means government should provide a framework for the operation of programs rather than actually operating the program. I hope you understand. Government will provide a framework for the operation of the program rather than directly operating the program. Government is so in a way you can in other words say that government will set the rules of the game and not playing the game. Second point is that government should focus on outcomes and needs of customers, that means the service recipients, rather than inputs or needs of bureaucracy. I hope you understand. Government should focus on the result, the outcome, and the needs of the service recipients rather than uh, rules or inputs in terms of money, or inputs in terms of job creation. Okay. Next is, the government should decentralize and delayer administration and address problems from the lowest level of the society. Decentralize and delayer administration and address problems from the lowest level of society. Fourth is, public agencies should compete with private agencies, should incorporate profit motivation and entrepreneurialism, and should adopt a market orientation wherever possible. I hope you understand. We have to, government has uh, government has created autonomous organizations in the corporate style like BSNL. And now BSNL has to compete with all other service providers of telecommunication. So if the BSNL, there is a threat to the employees of the BSNL. How? For that matter, any public sector. How? Because if they do not perform properly, what will happen? Government will disinvest that company. Government, there is a, just like an invisible threat to the employees, that if you do not work efficiently, end result is that you will lose your job, and we will privatize this industry, and we will sell this organization to some other private agency. So it is a threat to employees. Do not want that they should move from the public sector to the private sector. So this is the thing. Public agencies should compete with private agencies and should incorporate profit motivation and entrepreneurialism, and should adapt market orientation wherever possible. Government which works better uh, also costs less. That is, changing the system will result in a more efficient government which minimizes duplication, waste, and hence reduce the budget. So budget minimization, how it is possible? See, previously there was no convergence among departments. Each and every department was working in silos. Today, because of what is new public management, there is convergence and coordination among departments, and you are contracting out the minimal services. Like if you want to clean your organization every day, you do not recruit a permanent employee for that, which we were doing previously right after independence. Because recruiting a permanent employee means supporting that employee till the employee leaves this world. You are giving salary, and after that you are giving pension. So government, this new public management taught the administration to outsource such work, which are actually uh, of will not create any harm to the government, to outsource such work. So that is what the government is doing now: minimizing duplication, reducing waste, and reducing budget deficit. The underlying rationality is that our current system of government was invented as an in the beginning of industrial era. So we are in the era of information age, we need to reinvent our governance. Then the most important thing is that it defines the citizen as customer and offers them choices. So both the private sector and the public sector will be players in the market. Let the customer choose which is good and which is bad. Government must direct its energy to earn money rather than on spending. Previously, government was spending the taxpayers' money. Today, government is also uh, investing money and trying to get money out of that. It must, you know, uh, take everybody into take everybody together, the public, the private, and the voluntary sector, into action to solve the problems of the community and provide public services. Its main aim is to decentralize authority and encourage participative management, and it opt for debureaucratization and opt for market mechanism. Wherever you want any expert services, you go to the market and you hire from the market for a temporary period. Okay. Performance to be measured in terms of outputs, not inputs. It must be motivated by goals, not rules and regulations. So, what is important is the outcome, the result, not the thing. So I hope you understand what is debureaucratization. Debureaucratization means localization and externalization. That means you outsourcing some trivial functions which are also important, trivial work which are also important for the organization, which are inevitable for the organization, but you can outsource them. And there is localization. That means instead of a top down approach, now you believe in a bottom up approach. You tell the people at the local level to handle their uh, uh, problems. So you are now today giving more power to the local bodies. So because it is based on the idea that the local people know the local problems much better, so they have thought about it and they will be able to resolve the problems. So this is how you see we have uh, this new public management. So basically, new public management points out the failures in the public sector management. So public sector management, the failures in the public sector management means failures in public administration. So new public management addresses these failures so that state can function in a much better way. This is what is called shift from Weberian bureaucracy to new Taylorism. So basically, it wants to introduce managerialism, a new public management, market based public administration, entrepreneurial government. Just take note of these things. It wants to introduce managerialism in public administration, entrepreneurialism in public administration, and market based public administration and new public management. So the three P's of the new public management is efficiency, economy and effectiveness. Government must deliver more for less. Government must deliver more for less. So in this new public management, there is a basic concept which is also a part of the globalization process, that is empowering citizens. People must develop their capability to prove their worth in the market, to compete in the market, to suit the market. So, that is how, computer spread so much, because people wanted to learn it, and somehow or other they wanted to get their livelihood from it. So this is what is new public management is: providing responsive service, optimization of information technology, improving the quality of regulation. So basically, we are the governance is anticipatory governance, because prevention is better than cure. So that is the main feature of new public management. So what you find here is that in new public management, basically uh, bringing administrative reforms to the administration, so that when when you have a globalized market, when there is free flow of goods and services, when there is you're opening your market to the international community, you are so naturally your administration must have that capacity to address this internationalization. Your public sectors must have the capacity to address this internationalization. So therefore, there was much, new public management was imposed on developing countries. Otherwise, uh, globalization cannot happen. So basically, you can say globalization, new public management, it's a simultaneous development. Good governance, it is also a simultaneous development. So if you call these as Western agenda, there will be no mistake. You can call it as Western agenda, because the Western nations wanted to sustain their capitalistic enterprise, and there was saturation in their countries, and the market was ready in developing countries. So if they want cheap labor, they should advocate that ideology. So globalization is an ideology in the developing nations, so that they will enhance their capability, and if they enhance their capability, they will be ready for the Western market. So you find that we actually teach, we actually educate
Ma'am,
our
I can hear
children.
you.
Yes, you cannot hear me. We educate our children for particularly the Western market. So, and it was required, because the each and every developing country must make itself ready to be a part of the global development. So this is one way of updating the knowledge of the people, uh, as Frederick Winslow Taylor said. So, this is, if you read the scientific management approach again and think about globalization, you will be able to understand this, you know, this new public management and new Taylorism properly. Any questions? We have only 5 minutes left. We will then wind up the class. On 18th, I won't be taking the class, as you know. On 19th, we have class. On 19th, we will discuss on Unit 16 because one part is left, Business Process Re-engineering, Unit 17 and Unit 18. Then in the last class, we have 19, 20 and 21. Okay, and the last class will be held on 24th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So no questions. I'm surprised you people have no questions because it is such a complicated thing, and either I am capable of making you understand so you have no questions, or you are actually not in a mood to understand it. Either of this. Okay, then we are winding up the class because you have no questions. Good night.